And sometimes, especially during summer for this part of the world, we look for moisture in a different direction, and that is in the desert southwest and down into Mexico. We start to get a change in the wind, and that is referred to as the monsoon flow, and that's the actual literal definition, is the wind switching, Asian term. And as it rolls up like this, we can see, look at that, some measurable rainfall could drop in San Diego County, maybe even up close to LA County. Now, of course, for us, usually it doesn't get into our region, but sometimes we have to watch for it, as a couple of clouds might sneak in and give you either a very pretty sunset, pretty sky, or even a stray shower to our eastern areas. Right now we're getting a straight westerly influence, which means ocean influence. But we do expect to see that changing once we get closer to the weekend. This area of high pressure will start to fill back out toward the west, a lot like the last heat wave. The only good news is it looks like this won't be anywhere near as strong, so inland areas will start to get hot again, but we expect that as we start to knock on the door of July. Your coastal areas will stay obviously much cooler. And there's the monsoon. We'll go ahead and hit our FUTURECAST right here and look at the clouds and actual rain falling throughout San Diego County, maybe Orange, and then possibly your Riversides, your San Bernardino counties, but then maybe getting very close to our region right here across the backsides of some of our coastal ranges. There's always that chance. And also we have to watch out for dry lightning. If you do get a thunderstorm and you don't get a lot of rain out of it, you can still get the static discharge, and that can cause brush fires or even some big forest fires. So we watch that closely. And speaking of that threat, we always keep an eye on the wind this time of year, and it looks like Gaviota, you'll be a little gusty overnight tonight into tomorrow, and then it starts to back off. And of course, once we get into the morning hours, we expect pretty much all coastline, maybe Gaviota will be the exception. Should see at least a little bit of patchy fog throughout the morning hours, and by the afternoon, you should be very nice. So 70s, high 60s for the beaches of Santa Barbara South Coast, and then 70s as you head a little farther into the interior areas, which would be a little bit warmer. And that means Buellton 77, Cuyama 88, really nice there. Santa Maria, a very comfortable 72 degrees. And then Paso Robles and Atascadero, high 70s are forecasted with our computer, and that's really nice. And probably that will be the last day as we start to get a little bit warmer, and it might be a little bit of an understatement, getting closer to hot by about Friday. Ojai 86, same story there. You'll probably get back in the 90s pretty quick, and the beaches of Ventura and Oxnard staying in the 60s and 70s. Surf, we have a south swell, and it's actually a pretty good one lingering out there. And water south of Point Conception, more toward the low mid 60s, not bad at all. And then a little bit cooler as you round the point and get up towards Central California, high 50s. And a quick look at our forecast maps. And there's the warming as we go through the weekend and into early next week. We expect that warming to be pretty short-lived, and then we'll start to slowly eke back down the other way. So peak day, probably Sunday as far as the heat. And again, the beaches won't be that bad. Mid to upper 70s, maybe an 80 will pop on the map in some of our warmer coastal areas, such as Santa Barbara, and then slowly coming back down as we head toward next week. And of course, inland areas, you go back into the 80s and 90s quickly by the end of the work week. And then as we head into next week, it looks like we drop back into the high 80s. And again, the beaches, that will be the place to beat the heat, where you stay 60s and 70s, and it looks like it's going to be absolutely lovely.